All right. Super excited for this podcast today. I have Mark Huelsing from Exo Mountain Gear on to talk about their backpacks for our backpack series. And I could just say that when I started Tricer, nobody would talk to me. Everyone blew me off, wanted nothing to do with me. But Mark always gave me the time of day. And I am just forever going to be appreciative of that and forever be loyal to Mark for that because it's rough when you're starting a company and you're trying to talk to people and they just blow you off. And Mark didn't. Mark would take my phone calls. He would give me insight. And man, Mark, thanks for coming on the podcast, dude.
Yeah, you bet. How long ago was that? Because I always lose track and context of time.
2020. Probably
I was right at
talking.
2020. Okay.
Yeah, 2020, maybe 2019. I was talking to you before I got everything off the ground, but you always give me the time of day, dude. And I'll always be appreciative of that, like talking to me and giving me some time.
Yeah, I think I don't know. I feel like I remember seeing like when you created the Tricer Instagram account, and can't remember if that's where you first reached out, but I know I remember seeing your profile on Instagram and there's like, I think a teaser photo and like 3 followers or something. Like it was right when you were getting started.
Yeah. I'm still working on those followers. We're like 11,000 now. I'm an influencer now, apparently. I don't know. It's hard to build that thing up. But
it's a different topic for a different day. I think the value of things like social media have decreased, over the years.
Yeah, and they're making it more and more hard to grow that stuff. Like it's not easy now. You almost have to buy followers. It's pretty nuts.
Yeah.
But yeah, man. So I actually reached out to Mark because I've ran Exo packs since like 2016, I believe. Whenever the K2 came out, I bought one of the, when the K2 first came out, I bought the K2 in like a 35, I might butcher the numbers, 3,500.
No, it's 35, yeah.
The K2 35. Ran that freaking bulletproof. I can tell you that I, at one point, was glassing in the Sierras on a hunt and knocked my backpack off of a cliff and it rolled freaking like 500 yards. I mean, like a nightmare cliff, like a real cliff. And it rolled and tumbled and that pack perfectly fine. I mean, nice. And that like perfectly fine came out of there. From that pack, I think in 2019, I picked up a K3 or 2020, whenever the K3 came out, I picked up like a 4,400. And that's been the pack that I've ran every season since. My kid runs the K2 still. The K2 is still going. I mean, I don't think it'll ever, one of your guys' biggest downfalls is your packs are too good. So you literally can just run the same pack forever. They're just great packs. So my kid runs the K2 now and I run the K3. In the 4,400, and I've been able to do some pretty good hunts, not quite expedition, but some like 7-day hunts in it. It's been tight, but it's just a great pack. And I think you guys really have it figured out. I was joking with you before the podcast that you guys in my mind are kind of like the In-N-Out burger of backpacks. Like you make basically one pack in 3 sizes, really freaking good.
Yeah. I mean, there's a bunch of reasons for that. I mean, everything we do is on purpose, first of all, right? So it's like, we're not just out to have a bunch of different options or sell a bunch of different SKUs. Everything we release is like, it has a purpose. Every detail has a reason. And then we just want to stay really efficient and really focused as a company and not get lost in the weeds and not, like we're a small team. We want to be a small team. We want to focus on one thing, lightweight load hauling pack systems for backcountry mountain hunting and just do that and do that to the absolute best of our abilities. So we end up saying no to a lot of stuff and it'd be fun to work on other things at other times, but it also takes away from like our core focus, our core mission and, what we want to do. So there's a reason you only see a few different things from us.
Mm-hmm. Which is fine. If you can make 3 great things, like you don't have to be Burger King where you start selling tacos. You just sell really good doubles, and that's what you guys do. I hope you guys have In-N-Out Burger where you guys are from. Hopefully it's relevant to people. I don't know if you have that. We have In-N-Out Burgers everywhere.
Yeah, we didn't for a long time, but I know you're from San Diego area, and I have friends and family. So I've grown up, visiting the area and was like well aware of In and Out. Used to be a big treat when we went out that way.
Yeah. So what we've been doing this podcast is kind of just trying to figure out, like, the origins of your company, why it came about. Like, you guys aren't like some big venture capitalists. Like, you obviously created this stuff with a purpose and a reason behind it. Kind of how you guys started, how it came about, and why you're doing what you're doing as a story first, and then we'll kind of get into like the pack itself or the packs themselves. So
Yeah.
yeah, give us like the 10,000 foot view of Exo and origins and where it came from, and you know
Yeah. Yeah, I'll try to give it a short version. This is our 10th year, at least in terms of selling product. Things were in the works before then, but this is our 10th year of actually selling packs. Exo was started by two hunting buddies, Steve Speck and Lenny Nelson. I knew both of those guys before they started Exo, was helping Steve with a different business a little bit on the side. My background's in technology. And I remember him like telling me at an event, I think we were at ATA show many, many years ago. And I think that's where he first told me, but he's like, hey, me and Lenny have been working on this bag design. Like, we're getting somewhere, we're going to launch. And so it was fun to be a part of, it was quite a long process before things were public there of prototyping and testing and like wild ideas. But if you go back to that time, there's a lot more pack companies now targeting the hunting market. There wasn't then. And so, to cast with a broad brush, it's like you have external frame packs. They're great for heavy loads. They're terrible to hunt in, right? They're big, they're heavy, they're typically noisy, they're bulky. It's like hard to maneuver. They don't have any flex, they don't have any give, but they're great if you're just throwing on an elk quarter and you're done hunting. And then we're all, backpack hunters. So like we want things to be lighter. We want to be more nimble in the mountains. And so is that old school situation of like, hey, I want to hunt with like this pack, a backpacking pack, like a Gregory or an Osprey or a Kelty, like to cross with
Mhm.
that like REI type pack because they're lighter, they're more comfortable and everything else. But you can't haul anything in them, when you're successful. So the goal is to combine those and have something super strong, like a framed pack, an external framed pack, but also something as light and nimble and functional as like a backpacking pack. You go back then and a lot of the hunting packs were nothing more than like a JanSport and camo, really.
Yeah.
So yeah, I mean, that was the goal. Really like development was just continual, a sewing machine in a garage, and then eventually an actual sew shop, which is the same sew shop we use today, which is really cool. We build everything in Idaho, like all in the U.S. Yeah, so that's how things started, man. It was just like a couple hunters thinking they could figure out a way to do something better because what we wanted didn't exist on the market. And I was like, all right, let's just make it and see where it goes. And didn't, as you said, like you mentioned VC, like venture capital is like the ambition wasn't to grow a company, scale a company, sell a company, get rich. The goal was the pack that we want doesn't exist. Like, let's go make it. And I'm sure if we make it and find something we love, there's gonna be some other folks who want it too. And then we'll see where it goes. We'll sell some. So it's been a wild 10 years in that regard for sure. And then, you kind of nailed it earlier when you were mentioning dates. Like the first year was 2014. That was the original pack. 2015, there was an update, there was changes. And then 2016 was the release of K2. And then we were on K2 till 2019 when we released K3. And then just almost exactly a year ago in 2023, released K4. So our product life cycle is pretty long, especially as we've
Mhm.
matured as a company. Like those first couple of years, there was quicker changes. And a lot of that is just like we put a lot of design and testing into it, but with a pretty small group, right? And then you
Mhm.
go from, we had 30 guys running the first generation prototype, but then you start selling and now it's like, okay, well now there's hundreds of them. And like that's exposing different things in the product. So early on, you're moving fast and making changes and, getting things to market. And then as we've matured, we take a long approach to product development, a long approach to testing, and things like new materials, for example, because there's a lot of stuff that hits the market, like say it's a new fabric technology, for example, and you'll see that the people developing that fabric, they have all these great marketing claims of, it's X% lighter and it's waterproof and it's this, that, and the other thing. But that's generally all coming from the lab and not coming from the real world. And the people who are developing those technologies, they're developing fabrics, but they're not necessarily concerned as much with like, how is that being used and applied, right? And us as hunters, we're all hard on gear. So a lot of the stuff that is claimed, it's like, okay, those are great claims, but let's actually beat this stuff up for a long time and see how it performs in the field. So, K2, 3 years, K3 was really 3.5, almost 4 years. And that whole cycle, like as soon as we released K3, actually before we released K3, we were already working on what's next, but we took that 3+ year life cycle of really developing what is now K4. And part of that's thorough testing. And part of that is like, we were so happy with K3 that it's like, okay, to make this better, we don't have a short list of stuff to fix, right? Because we have a really great pack system. So now it's like, let's explore ideas. Let's challenge our own ideas. Let's take some concepts and put them into the field and see if they actually work or not. So yeah, it's a fun process to work on all that stuff. But yeah, that's a short, I guess, summary of the last 10 years.
Yeah, that's awesome. And I like, so it's very similar with Tricer, right? Like I tell people all the time, like I'm just selfishly building things for myself and then other people like them. Right. And so I think that's the best approach, right? Like if I'm a big company and I'm just like, go develop me a new product, like, and there's no like buy-in on that product that makes any sense. You're just designing a product to sell it like a gimmick. I'm not a big fan of gimmicks. Like I want to develop products that I'm going to use. Right. And then another thing you touched on is like, you see it, like I make changes to products and I have like a bunch of new stuff coming out that's been getting field tested for the last year. You can field test all you want. And then as soon as you get like, 1,000 of those in the field, you're going to be like, how did I not think of that? Oh my gosh. If we would have put that zipper going this way, it would have changed our lives, right? It's like, it's so hard to get that, but you need that. And I think that's a mark of a good company is hearing those complaints and then making the changes, right? Like I'll joke with you about this, but like, it's like, I feel like you guys hate Nalgene's, but,
we used to, we could talk about that.
okay, but like you made your pocket of the K3 big enough for my Nalgene not to fall out. Like it was like enough people said like, dude, like my Nalgene keeps falling out of my backpack on the K2.
Yeah.
So you don't hit Nalgenes anymore. Are you using like the little straw in the Nalgene or what are you doing?
No, for K4, we liked the idea of Nalgenes. We hated the practical use of them in the field, right? So like to your point on storage and access, Nalgenes are big. And if you put them like a lot of the Nalgene holders that existed on the market, they're like hip belt mounted, right?
Yeah, they flop everywhere.
They're flop everywhere because a full Nalgene's pretty stinking heavy.
Yeah.
And so it's moving. And then when that Nalgene's like half empty, well, then the water in it is sloshing. And then when it's forward, it's super accessible. But the Nalgene has such a big profile that as you're hiking with like a natural motion, like you're hitting your arms on it and stuff. So we've loved the idea of drinking from an Nalgene, using an Nalgene, having drink mixes in an Nalgene. We just hated the fact that there was nowhere good to put them to keep it both accessible and secure. So all that said to say, that was one of the things we worked on is like K3. It's like, we have to come up with something better for a Nalgene. And it can't be like anything that's out there because everything that's out there is, not usable for us. So we literally developed the K4 hip belt in part, the actual design of our entire hip belt to work with an integrated Nalgene holder that we have. And we're using laser cut Mali for all of our accessory attachment. Super low profile, incredibly strong, much more secure than like standard webbing. And we basically have a spot on the towards the back end of the hip belt, back towards the bag.
Oh, wow.
That's a single row of laser cut molle. A Nalgene tucks in there perfectly. It's out of the way. It doesn't get in your way when you're hiking. Really easy to reach. It's even angled. So like going back to the way the hip belt's built, not only is there a laser cut molle section there, but it's actually angled on purpose to make it super easy to reach a Nalgene and put it back. So honestly, since we've been, prototyping, developing that for several years at this point, I haven't used a water bladder in quite a long time.
Yeah.
And part of that's the change in how I've been using water filtration too in the field. But anyway, the Nalgene holder we have is secure, doesn't move around, doesn't flop around. It's not in your way. It's easy to get access to. It's easy to put it back away. So that's like a simple thing of, yes, it's a Nalgene holder. There's been Nalgene holders forever, but they've all had, in our perspective, a whole list of problems. And so we tried to solve all those problems, but it really took designing around just the Nalgene holder. So it's not just that accessory. Like another example of that is where that molle is stitched in the hip belt. That portion of the hip belt has this piece of HDPE inside of it. So there's actually structure to it. So again, if a weighted or a full Nalgene's relatively heavy, we didn't want that like sagging or putting pressure hanging off the hip belt. So there's actually an internal structure that wraps around behind that mounting location and keeps everything supported essentially. So yeah, that's the type of, like, to us, we look at a simple problem of like, okay, there's a bunch of Nalgene holders, but nothing we love. How can we fix that? And there ends up being a lot of effort and design detail put into every little thing. So it's actually, that's one of the super fun things to do is you take something super simple like a water bottle holder, but when you get down to it, you can put so much effort into smart design. And at the end of the day, it looks really simple, and it is really simple, but a lot of times the simplest solutions have a lot of work behind them,
Yeah.
So that stuff's fun.
Yeah, everyone's like, make it ultralight. And it's like, dude, ultralight and skeletonizing is so much freaking harder than just making it heavy. So,
yeah,
even though it weighs
sure.
less. I really appreciate that you guys went to the molle webbing. So I want to see the whole industry go to Arca Swiss. I think the whole backpack industry should go to molle. I think you're seeing this push where everyone's kind of going to molle. It's such a simple system and it's easy to interchange things. And like, maybe I want to use someone else's little pocket on something and I can be able to do that now through different backpacks and stuff and try it. And I feel like everyone's kind of getting on board with that, from bino harnesses to backpacks. That's neat to see everyone doing that. It's a really simple system.
Yeah, it is. And that goes back to like us trying to stay focused. Is now that we're on laser cut molle, we're getting like requests for like, oh, you guys should do a bear spray holster. And our answer is like, there's already a great one that works. It works great on molle. It mounts to that same location. Like that spot is on both sides. So you could have like Nalgene on one side, bear spray holster on the other side. So I'm like, sure, we could make one. I could sell you one, or I could just tell you, hey, go over here, buy this one. It works great on our packs. And now I get to focus on something else. Right. So yeah, it is cool. It is definitely a bit more universal. And a lot of that, has come from, obviously, molle itself, for guys who are aware, but I mean, it's been around forever. But this new laser cut molle is much more low profile. It's a lot stronger. And a lot of that started on the tactical end of the world, right? A lot of the military stuff. And yeah, it's cool to see developments. Like that laser cut molle is really only possible because of fabric technologies and laser cutting and a lot of like hybrid dual layer lamination in fabrics. And so we're always, paying attention to that stuff. And at SHOT Show, where all the new suppliers and vendors and fabric suppliers are. And it's like, it's fun to see new developments on that side of things. Cause as I said before, like a lot of times a fabric development, they may not have an end use in mind yet. And so it's fun to see like a new fabric technology, but then us feel like, oh, we could do this with it. And a lot of times that person developing that new fabric didn't even have that use case in mind. So it's fun to always kind of be exploring stuff like that.
Yeah. And I think that rising tides float all boats, right? And I think sometimes in our industry, there could be some people like, I'm the only backpack guy. But really, this innovation like this, it really kind of drives everything to be better, right? So when you start seeing you guys do it, it's going to force this company to do it. And it's kind of like this, that's what innovation really is constant development and constantly just changing, and but even the smallest things. So it's nice to see that.
Hmm.
Nice to see you guys being willing to make those changes for your customers, right? Even though it's a small change, it's huge in the end. I'm curious to hear. We have an hour, so we can talk a little bit about your water system. I'm so like bipolar on my water system. Like I love bladders. I do because I'm in San Diego and Arizona, and it's freaking hot, and bladders are easy. But I also love
Hmm.
Nalgene's because I like to mix drinks. I like to have it's in the tent. It's better to drink out of for me. I don't want to be sucking on a straw in the tent and having to grab my backpack. So I kind of
Hmm.
like a hybrid system now. At least I'll have one Nalgene in my pack with a bladder. And my biggest issue with the Nalgenes is accessibility. Like especially if I'm DIYing or by myself, it's like
Hmm.
I have to like take my backpack off to grab my Nalgene, right? Or I have to have my kid. If my kid's in the hey, grab my Nalgene for me, and then drink some water from it. So it's nice to have that straw
Right.
there. That's why I've kind of been thinking about looking at like some of these like bladder built-in bottle systems they have out there. But they
Yep.
do carry weird, and they do. I feel like a bladder kind of collapses on itself, so the water's not sloshing as much. Where Nalgenes can kind of like throw you off too, balance wise, because they are heavy. You're talking 3 pounds for an Nalgene, maybe a 32-ounce Nalgene, 2.5 pounds, something like that. So
Hmm.
where are you at with your water system? Because that's like you guys are like water system is your thing. I feel like where are you at with this right now?
Like personally, what am I doing for like
Personally, what are you doing?
filter and
Yeah,
storage and all that
yeah.
stuff?
What are you
Yeah.
doing? Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I would say that it would be probably a little bit different if I was in your context. I think bladders have their place for like drier climates, right? Where you're going further distances and longer time stretches without filtering and refilling.
Mm-hmm.
So if it's a situation where you're in Arizona and it's like, hey, I need to start the day with 4 liters of water,
Mm-hmm.
and that may be my only water source for the day. I'm not stopping and filling and filtering throughout the day, then I probably would go with a bladder. I think it's going to be easier in that case. But, you know, hunting in Idaho, like water's generally plentiful where we're at. And so I don't necessarily want to start my day with 4 liters because I'm carrying a bunch of extra weight and water when in all reality, I have access to water like every few hours, for example,
Mm-hmm.
right? Like hiking, crossing creeks all the time. And I look at that as like, man, if I'm crossing creeks 5 times today, why am I starting the day with 4 liters of water and carrying a bunch of weight I don't need? So essentially, my system is a Nalgene and then a Hydra Pack bladder, more of a storage container though than a drinking bladder. So it's called a Hydra Pack Seeker.
Is that
I
kind of like
do
the drama
carry,
MSR Drama Light, similar?
yeah, similar. Yeah, it's
Yeah, I
shaped a
use the
little bit
I,
different
I
and
use
has
the
a
Drama
different
Lights.
cap. Yeah,
Okay.
but it's similar. And so I'll carry that, and it has up to a 4 liter capacity, but I'm typically not filling it, right? For all
Mm-hmm.
4 liters at a time. And then I've used several different filters over the years, like we used to use the Sir Squeeze filters a lot, and then the
Mm-hmm.
Kated and Be Free came out. That's great. The Platypus Quick Draw came out. It's pretty good. And then Hydra Pack came out with their own filter. And I've been using that one pretty much extensively. But with that Hydra Pack, I can have a 4 liter storage container or bladder. I can have it empty. I can have it full. I can have it half full. And then their filter screws right into that cap. And so essentially, I can just filter real quick, just squeeze and refill an Nalgene at any point in time. So I
Very
may
cool.
just be drinking on that Nalgene, and then as it gets low, I'm stop, take a quick break. It takes me less than a minute to fill that Nalgene back up from that bladder. And then if there are situations where it's like, hey, we're going to go camp up on this ridge, we may not be getting into water for the next 12 hours or what have you. Like I still have the capacity to carry 5 liters of water when I need to. So that's kind of the system I've been using for everything for the last few years and prefer it. But yeah, I mean, a lot of that stuff, it does come down to both preference and context. Again, like just because I'm doing it for where I'm hunting doesn't mean it's the best solution for everybody if they're hunting in a different context.
Awesome. Yeah, I was just curious on that. I'm going to rein you back. We're going to go back into backpacks. Who are your backpacks made for?
So going back to like, we are making our packs for what we're doing.
Mm-hmm.
I'll start by saying like our favorite thing in the world is to backpack hunt, meaning we want to take off on foot, cover ground for multiple days with everything we need on our backs, and then hopefully kill an animal and need to pack that animal out of the mountains, right? So everything we do, every decision we make in design is coming from the perspective of backpack hunters. That, like, from a super high level, to give you an example of that, like, if you look at our bags, they're all designed where the main compartment of the bag is pretty open and unstructured, meaning in the main bag, there's not a bunch of like built-in storage and organization or compartments forcing you to use the main volume of the bag in a certain way. But then externally on all of our bags, we're going to have things like full-length side pockets, our lid that's dual zippered, our front stretch pockets, our lower side pockets. And so for us, if you just think about, as a backpack hunter, what am I doing? Well, I am starting the day often with camp on my back and all my gear. Throughout the day, I need access to certain things like my tripod, my spotting scope, the food for the day,
Mm-hmm.
my water filter. So I want to be able to access all of those things that I need throughout the day without getting into my main bag. Because within the main compartment of my bag is going to be my shelter, my sleep system, clothing that I may or may not need that day, extra days of food because I'm going to be out here for multiple days at a time. And so, like, again, from a very high level, our bags are designed to give you access to what you need and essential organization for what you need while you're hunting, and then to essentially have your camp like in the main bag. Because at the end of the day, that's when you're going to get all that stuff out. It's not throughout the day that, you don't want to have to like dig through your sleep system to get to your water filter, for example.
Yep.
All that said to say, like, obviously we make a day pack as well. So we always want to, we're approaching things, there's an intention behind every design detail we're making. We also want to build in versatility to our packs, because the fact of the matter is we love to backpack hunt, but not even like even us personally, we get to backpack hunt a lot, but not every hunt's a backpack hunt. Like
Yep.
you need to be able to take like our K4 5000's our best selling pack. You can go do a week out of it, but it makes a great day pack. Like I could talk
Yep.
for a long time about how it's designed to compress really well. And the fact of the matter is, if you're dropping good coin and spending your hard-earned money on a top quality product, like I want you to use that as absolute much as possible. You may go on one backpack hunt a year, maybe you ever go on every few years. You can also use it to whitetail hunt, do a saddle setup, carry a tree stand, day hunt out west, go on hikes with the family. So we try to build in versatility and like even highlight that with our customers, because a lot of us don't get to hunt as much as we want, and we want you to have a product that you can go do all kinds of outdoors adventures with, and not just backpack hunt.
Yeah. I mean, I'm a gear geek. Anyone who listens to this podcast knows that. And I put a ton of research into like what backpack I was going to run. And I ended on you guys. And one thing I'd say about your packs is you're very like utilitarianism. Like it's not like you're not building an ultralight minimalist pack, right? You're not building a backpack that's just like a bag that's super light and can rip. But you're also not building a bag that has like a million pockets on it about stuff going on. You're kind of like right in the middle. Talk about the thought process of that. Like you talked about earlier, like everything has a purpose. Like, and that's the case with Exo. I feel like it's such a simple system that just works.
Yeah. I mean, I think it goes back to testing and the fact that we're not trying to design a product that's going to be marketable. We're trying to design a product that's going to function and
There you
let
go.
happy customers be our marketing. So it's like, it would be really easy to like go, hey, there's this new thing, or if we build a pack that weighs X amount, like that's a great talking point. People are going to get excited and they're going to buy it. But what's going to happen is then they're actually going to go use it and realize that it's so stripped down that it just ticks them off. And we've had a lot of good ideas that we'll think of a good idea or a good design or a good bag layout, and we're all excited about it until we actually go hunt with it.
Mm-hmm.
And then we're like, oh, well, that is actually super limiting because of X, Y, Z. Or like a better example of that would be when we were designing K4 bags, we designed a few different bag layouts that were asymmetrical. So like only one side had a full length side pocket, for example. And there's a bunch of other examples, but let's stick with that one. Only one side had a full length side pocket. And it was like, we go and we're like, say we're archery elk hunting, mule deer hunting, etc. Like that works great. Like we just have our spotter and whatever. But then you go to a different context or different hunts, and like maybe it's a colder rifle hunt now, and you have other gear, more gear, other situations, and it's like, oh crap, I actually miss this now. And so when you start like stripping away features, you can find yourself in situations where things are too limited. But at the same time, if you just start going, oh, I could do this, that, and the other thing, add this, do that, have a specialized pocket for that, then you end up with something that's overly complex, right? And so our whole goal is to be not as minimal as possible, but as simple as possible.
There you go.
Without giving up function. So like it'd be super easy to like swing on either end of the spectrum and go, we have a pocket for this and a design for that and an attachment for this, and end up with like a really complex system that forces you into like, this is where you put your water filter. This is where you put your headlamp. This is where you do that, because everything's designed out for you. Or go the other way and be like, hey, we want to, be super minimal and this, but then you get in the field with it and it's just not functional. So our whole thing is simplicity, efficiency, and versatility. And so I think that's the reason, like, you didn't use the word, but essentially we land in the middle, right? Of like some other packs that are more feature rich and more complicated, some others that are more minimal, more streamlined. We just want to be simple and efficient.
So my motto for the company is fast, light, simple. So we're on the same page there. So I could say like me I don't even know how many hundreds of days I've been in your pack. Hundreds. Those side pockets are more than like, for one, I don't like how my tripod is strapped to the back of my backpack. I want it in a pocket. Like I like having that pocket dropped in there. So it's not just strapped on the outside of my pack. I know it looks cool in pictures, but dude, like on my tripod, I'm sorry. Like I want it put away. They're not like, built to be, beat through sticks, and, I want it protected. You wouldn't do it to yeah. So there's that. And then I also use those side pockets for like a lot of my puffies and stuff, like my base layer.
Yeah.
Like I don't use like, so there's on the Exo pack, there's a few things I use that aren't really their intended purpose, but like I'll use that side pocket. Sometimes I'll shove my TP in the bottom of that side pocket, keep everything in there. You can really get a lot of stuff in there, but I do often use it for my jackets and stuff. So shove my puffies in there. My rain gear will be in there. So my rain gear will be in the bottom of that thing, and then a puffy or something, and that way it's just right there on the side of my pack, not inside of my pack with all my other stuff. I also use, if I'm not running a bladder, you have a water zipper pocket. I'll use that for like kill kit and stuff. So I'll put kill kit in there. So it's just like you don't, like, I like what you said, that you don't have to like, this is where your lighter goes. Well, no, I don't want my lighter to go there. I want my lighter to go here. So like you guys have it to where I could be very universal with it. And like I don't have any complaints other than the Nalgene thing, which you guys have fixed. Like I have no complaints about that pack. It's just been really simple to use. I like that you use word simple. I like simple things. Like, and it's very simple to use, utilitarianism, and like it's great, and it's durable. I think I have like one rip on my K2, but again, hundreds of days, and it's on the side pocket, which is the thinnest part of the pocket, and it was from like a freaking overloaded pack going through like scrub oaks. You know what I mean? Like anything would have ripped. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like they just last. I've never had a zipper issue. I've never had a buckle break. They work really good.
Yeah, it's good to hear. Going back to versatility, like your example of like, essentially there's intention behind everything we do, right? I said that, but then there's also the versatility of, well, a user may want to do this with it. Or in certain cases, like going back to like you mentioned the water bladder sleeve, for example. And then I said how I haven't really been using a water bladder for a few years, like a traditional drinking bladder. So yes, in all of our bags, we have a dedicated water bladder sleeve. So if you are running a bladder, it keeps your water bladder separate from the main bag. You get separate access if you need to pull it out and refill it. But also, if you ever have a bladder leak, there's like a waterproof membrane between your water and your main gear. And there's a grommet, like a drain at the bottom. So full pack, full bladder, bladder leaks, your gear's not getting wet, right? Because we have this dedicated design and compartment. Well, I'm not running a bladder anymore. So what good is that compartment to me? Well, it's actually killer because, again, separation between the water bladder compartment and the main bag. In my main bag, I'm going to have like extra clothes, my sleeping system, etc. Well, I'm out there backpack hunting. I get up in the morning. I want to move camp. It's early. My tent, it either rained last night or it's, dew. My tent is wet. I don't have to take my tent, put it in the main bag with my sleeping bag and get my gear wet or my clothes wet. I'll take my tent fly, put it back in that water bladder sleeve. And so now I have a wet tent fly, fully water separated from all of my dry gear. So that's like another example of like versatility of, I'm not running a water bladder, but that water bladder compartment is great because now it's essentially like a wet, dry storage area and separation between gear. So yeah, but those are the types of things too. It's just, we probably can't always do our best to communicate all the options, like a quote unquote feature like that, but it just comes from experience in the field. And that's always fun for us to see is customers get our pack and then start getting in the field with it and go, oh, I can see why they did that now, because you don't see everything up front. Like a super minor example is we have these lower side stretch pockets. There's a compression strap that runs across it and there's this hole. So you can either run the compression strap outside of the pocket or you can run it behind the pocket. And a lot of people don't realize, like, is there any purpose and value there? And there's a ton of purpose and value. If you're running a tripod and you drop your tripod legs in that lower side pocket, you can run the compression strap around your tripod legs and keep it secure. But you take that lower side stretch pocket and let's say you put like a Nalgene or another water bottle in it. I don't necessarily want my Nalgene strapped in. So now I can pass the compression strap behind the pocket and behind the pocket's contents and have easier access to it, but it's still held in that stretch pocket. So there's all kinds of just little design details like that it's fun to see, I guess, when those light bulbs go off for the customer, they start using the pack and realize like, oh, they really did do everything on purpose on this pack.
Yeah. And I like what you said about just shoving your tent fly into your pack. We're not going to go too much into this, but you guys have made me a believer. Like, I don't use stuff sacks anymore. And like with the way your bags are designed, I'm able to really just kind of put my gear in there and like compress it down. I run a quill, I run an Xtherm, my tent, and I just put it in there. So you can actually use those pockets. Like you don't need to have, if you're not especially when it comes to tents, like tents can really ball up really small. They don't have to be in this big long sleeve. So with your pack, I find I'm able to put most of my tents and stuff into like the side pouch, like I said, or into the bottom of my bag or in the water jacket. So like if you're not using stuff sacks, your backpack becomes a lot more universal as well.
Yeah. Anytime you're putting something in a stuff sack, you're creating a shape. And that shape has to either have a perfect spot to live or it's going to take up more space than it essentially should. And if it's not in a stuff sack, you're not creating a defined shape. Well, now that tent doesn't become a, 12 by 8 cylinder. Now it can like free form and fill in nooks and crannies. And so you're just able to pack much more efficiently across the board when you're not just creating a bunch of blocks that you're then trying to jam together.
All right. I think we kind of covered the pack pretty darn good. You also have a top lid for actually on the orange top lids now, which is very utilitarianism like that as well. It's like 2 zippers, everything there, get my stuff in there. I love it. Let's talk about load hauling. I don't want to act like I've cut a lot of stuff, but I've carried a lot of weight in this pack. And I find of every pack I've seen people use, mine doesn't shift. It just, there's a way, like, it's just like when you put an out quarter into your pack, I'm able to lock that thing down really well. I actually go with an X system now on there. I don't go straight across. I X them
Yeah.
now, and it works really well. So let's talk about that.
Yeah, I mean, everything we've talked about so far has been mostly centered around the bag, right? Like
Yes.
bag layout, bag design, how you store
Mhm.
and access your gear, which is great. It's important. As I said, we obviously put a lot of thought into it, but I don't want to say it's meaningless, but it's definitely not very valuable if we had the best perfectly designed bag ever. And then for hunters had something that couldn't carry weight
Mhm.
comfortably, effectively, and efficiently, right? So yeah, for us, like at the end of the day, we think about all the small details, but really performance is still the priority. And I would say our focus on simplicity also carries over into load hauling. As we all know as hunters, like a lot of times when you kill something, it's not convenient. You like it's usually late and you're chasing daylight, or it already is dark, or it's hot and you need to get out of there, and you're dealing with meat and you got gear and you're getting blood. Like it's not an ideal situation to deal with something that's difficult or complex. So we really have focused on the whole process of okay, great. The guy using our pack was out there, he was hunting, and he killed something. Now what? Well, now we want that process to be as simple as possible. So all of our bags detach from the frame, have integrated compression straps on the frame. The way that the bags detach from the frame is literally just takes just a few seconds, is incredibly simple. You can load directly on the frame, sandwich that bag back over, have a bunch of compression built in. And as you said, just keep that load secure. Because not only is it annoying if your load's not secure, it's actually can be unsafe, right? You're
Mhm.
off trail, you're in steep country, you have an elk quarterback there that's say 75 pounds plus some gear, you're maybe carrying 90 or pounds or even more off trail. And if that load is shifting and throwing your center of balance off and making you miss stuff, like that's a legit potential dangerous situation. So yeah, we just focus on again simplicity, security, and ultimately performance in terms of we want our pack to fit you well and to not beat you up.
Mhm.
Fitting you comes from a couple different things. One is you need the pack to be built to have the capability to fit you well, meaning like we have 5 hip belt sizes, we have 4 frame heights, we're all built differently. I'm 6'2", 185. We have guys who are 5'4", we have guys who are 6'8", we got guys who are a buck 40 and guys who are 300 pounds, right? There's no one size fits all pack. So we have all these size options to fit you, and then we have adjustments, micro adjustment built in to actually make the pack adjust to fit you very specifically. And it's a super easy process. We help people with it all the time. We got great information. But when you have a pack that's built to fit you, adjusted properly, and then is built to be as comfortable and as durable as possible, and that goes into, I mean, I could talk for hours on this topic, but like the foams that we use, for example, are all very, very purposely chosen, many of which are dual density. So you have like a softer cushioned layer, you have a firmer layer backing that up. You take either one away or you only use one, you're going to have a decrease in performance. Our frame shape, like I could talk on and on. But yeah, at the end of the day, we know as great as it is to have a bag layout that you like and is convenient for you to use with your gear, stuff gets real when you're miles away and you have hundreds of pounds of meat to then carry. That's when the pack really is going to show its importance, and it's going to show its flaws if it has any. So, yeah, hopefully all of us can go have more successful hunts and realize that the pack we're using is up to the task at that point.
Yeah, and even with like the most secure pack with a heavy load, carrying out an elk sucks, and it is dangerous, right? So you even if it's the most, you're still going to be. It's still a weird position to be in when you're carrying an elk out. So you want to make sure
Yeah,
there is no shifting because even if it's perfectly secured there, like we've all done it, right? Like you just go for a ride. Like once you start going, like you're going for a ride with that thing. Once that thing, once your weight shifts, you're off camber, It's funny if you don't get hurt. I mean,
Yeah.
we all laugh at our buddies when it happens, but like there are
Yeah.
some serious. I mean, my son's getting surgery on the 17th. Karen did it elk last
Oh,
year.
wow.
He's getting knee surgery. Finally, they're going in and they're gonna clean him up. They're going in 3 spots because his knee hyperextended carrying out an elk, and it was like a 1 a.m. We ended up killing 5 cows in like 3 days. It was a nightmare. Like it sounds really cool
Wow.
now, but like it was a slaughter over on Utah cow over the public land hunt, and but his knee popped because he was carrying it out and he stepped on a rock wrong and it just shifted and it things go wrong and you want to make sure you are as stable as possible when you do
Yeah.
it. Another thing I could say, you should touch on this a little bit, is my first time using your pack wasn't like packing an animal was not as enjoyable as it is now, because I never tried to do that until I killed an animal. And
Hmm.
then I was like, what am I doing?
Yeah.
So I would say it is so important, no matter what brand pack you buy, they're all a little different, to figure out,
Hmm.
like, go get a bag of dog food or something and figure out how you're going to strap it into your backpack. Because once you get an elk down, like, there's nothing worse than not knowing what you're doing. Like, I remember, like, with yours, like, I was like putting the Velcro back over the top, and I was like, I
Hmm.
was doing it all wrong. Which
Yeah.
I don't honestly, your packs have gotten so much easier in that sense too. Like to switch, like I can easily get an elk or get a quarter in my bag like in minutes now, with your packs and
Hmm.
the way you have them designed. But you still need to do that, right? Like how
Yeah.
important is like using your pack, trying your pack, and before you go out and kill something.
Yeah. I mean, it's critical from many levels. We could design the simplest thing ever, but that doesn't mean that someone's going to know what to do either, right? So there's a level of things like where we want to make it intuitive, but there's also like you still have to do it, right? Like
Mhm.
there's still some effort on the user to know what to do. So one is we have great videos and we try and do as best a job as we can of following up with customers. I mean, what's one thing with our company that's different from a lot of others is we only sell direct. If you're buying our pack, you're buying it from us. And with us being a super small company, if you pick up the phone and want to talk to me, call me, right? Like you're going to deal with one of our few guys, all of which who are involved with the design use of our packs. Like I don't care when you call, like whoever's answering the phone's a user of the pack, not a salesman, not a customer service guy. So I would just say, give us a call if you have any questions. And then going back to what I was saying about follow up, because we sell direct, you're buying from us. We have your contact, so we're not going to bug you. But what we are going to do is go, hey, 4 weeks after you bought our pack, we want to send you an email and make sure that you know how to load this thing with weight. Now, I still can't make you look at that email or watch that quick video, but I'm doing everything I can to try and give you all the information you need to try and be successful as possible. If you go to our website right now under info and go to how to, you're going to find 30 plus videos that show you how to do everything from load an elk quarter to strap a bow to your pack, right? So all the info's there. Everything is designed to be easy to use, plus try and give you all the information. But again, there's nothing that beats experience. And this is like a broader topic that I think is a trap all of us as hunters fall into is it's fun to talk about gear. It's fun to research gear. It's fun to buy gear. It's a whole
Mhm.
different thing to actually go use that gear and to know what you're doing. So we can extrapolate this beyond packs. We could say the same thing about tents or like we talked about water filters. Until
And my
you
goodness,
actually,
set your tent up before you go out. You'll be
yes,
so, please set your tent up
yeah,
before you go out.
yeah. Or I mean, and it's or maybe a guy has done it once really quick in the backyard on a perfect spot, but he hasn't done it, dealing with
Last
like a
winter
slope or something.
on
Yeah, exactly.
Christmas when you got it, and now we're in September. It was 9 months ago.
Yeah,
Yes.
yeah, exactly. So yeah, I mean, to your point, 100%, we always encourage people to load their packs for two reasons. One is to know how to load your pack. Two is to actually use the thing, hike with it, hike with weight, make sure it's adjusted to you properly, and just obviously get in shape for season. So I think you said like dog food. That's something great. We get the question on hey, I want to train with my pack this summer before hunting season. Like, can I strap a weight plate to it? I'm glad to talk about that and tell you that you can, but I will say that using something like a bag of dog food, a bag of water softener salt, a bag of concrete, a bag of sand, something like that is going to be much closer to replicating one, how to load your pack in the field, but also two, just carries more similarly to a real load than something like a weight. So yeah, I mean, again, this isn't just unique to us, not just our packs. I would say it for any pack company or any gear item. All of us as hunters should try and understand how to use our gear well before the hunt. And the biggest reason for that is not only to save like frustration, but it truly makes you a more capable hunter. Because if
Mhm.
you're going on one big hunt a year, and when you're in the field on your hunt, if you're wasting any time trying to figure out how to use or unclog your water filter, or you're wasting time trying to find a spot for your tent and how to set it up, and can you set it up here or not, like the more variables you can eliminate, the less time you can spend messing around with your gear, the more time you can stay focused on the task at hand, which is being out there to enjoy yourself and find an animal and go pursue the animal. And so hopefully we've all used our gear enough that it's second nature. We don't think about it, we don't worry about it. I'm not there
Mhm.
trying to figure it out or fumble through it. I'm out there to hunt, and that's what I'm focused on. And all the gear stuff, I figured that out months ago, right?
Yeah, I'm on this big kick this year. I'm going to shoot a Woodstock 30-06 for all my hunts just to prove a point. And dude, I it's so annoying the focus on rifles over gear. Like we want to have this rifle that's whacked out with all this stuff on it, shoots this far, does all this stuff. You might get to use it, but I'll guarantee you, and you might get to use it for one shot, maybe five. Depends on the situation. It's hunting, right? Maybe you're gun,
Hopefully one.
hopefully one, maybe. I'll guarantee you're gonna be using that darn pack for hours on end.
Yeah.
Figure it out. Like there's your other gear is I don't know, the weapon's the sexy thing though. I mean everyone wants the weapon. It's the sexiest
Right.
part of it. Everyone wants a new bow every year. Everyone wants a new rifle every year. Everyone wants to get the newest PRC, whatever, and I have them. I have the crazy rifles. But man, I'll tell you what, you're gonna spend 6 to 8 hours a night sleeping in your tent and using your sleep system. You probably should figure that out. You're
Yeah.
going to be carrying that backpack a long ways every day. And it's not just if when you're hunting, like if I'm going on an expedition style or multi-day hunt, I'm probably going in, like a lot of times I'm hunting, I'm carrying water around 60 pounds. You need to learn how
Hmm.
to load your pack and carry a pack and practice with it. Right. Like I'm getting into like what I call heavy pack season. Right. So I'm in the gym. I go to the gym like 5, 6 days a week. And then I also ride mountain bikes. But now I'm getting into like, okay, I'm going to start carrying my pack around and getting my body used to that. Because I can't guarantee I'm going to use my rifle every hunt. I can't guarantee I'm going to use my bow every hunt, which I do shoot my
Hmm.
rifles. I do shoot my bow every single day because it's fun, relaxing. But I can guarantee you I'm going to be carrying that backpack and I can get ready for that. And I feel like there's such a focus on the sexy things and not a focus on the think about what are you going to use the most on this hunt and like start practicing with that before you get out in the field. And that's probably like some of the best advice you could possibly get when it comes to backpack
Yeah.
hunting and getting out there.
Yeah. And I mean, we've all been guilty of that, right?
Mhm.
We
Yeah.
say all the time that your footwear and your pack are the two most important things that
Yep.
allow you to hunt effectively. And I'm not saying that because we sell backpacks. Like I would be glad to tell you that if you're buying someone else's backpack. I'm still going to tell you it's one of the most important decisions you can make, right? Like whether it's ours or somebody else's, it just is what it is. If
Well,
you can't,
and tripods. Tripods are very very
yeah, and
important.
tripods,
Very very very.
tripods.
But keep going. No, keep going.
Yeah.
Sorry.
But yeah, I mean, if you can't, you know, and especially if we're talking like more backcountry hunting, like if you can't
Yeah.
hike effectively and be comfortable and you're dealing with ill-fitting footwear and a pack that's hurting you even before you kill an animal, much less after you kill it and you're miles away, like
Mm-hmm.
you're hosed, man. You just can't hunt effectively. And then yeah, like it is also like to your point on the rifles, and I'm like you, I have a crazy nice modern rifle and I've shot a bunch of old like 30-06s as well, like done it all. it is also one of those things when people are willing to say spend thousands of dollars on a rifle
Yeah.
and then try and get away with, an inferior pack or inferior footwear. And it's like,
Mhm.
it goes back to where we put our attention, but also goes back to where we put our dollars, right? Like, I'd much rather invest in a few key things and have like a cheap weapon than have like a great custom rifle, but make compromises on packs or footwear or, other aspects that are actually going to allow me to hunt and get me to that opportunity that lasts a few seconds where I can then, shoot my $600 rifle.
This is a great podcast that we should do on another podcast. But man, like not only that, but like, oh, I can't believe you're applying for tags out of state. That's so expensive. But you
Yeah.
have a $5,000 rifle that you never use.
Right.
Oh, I can't believe you would buy a $300 tripod. You have a $4,000 rifle that you can't use if you can't find it. It's just like, I don't know. I
Right.
feel like the rifle is such a, like, you hunt a lot more than most guys. The vast majority, we're getting off topic, the vast majority of your shots are going to be probably under 300 yards, definitely under 400 yards. You don't need, there's some great marketing out there, and I love rifles. I buy guns. I bought one gun a month since the beginning of the year. Full disclosure. I mean, I'm building a crazy PRS gun right now, like a crazy one, like a freaking whacked out one. 'Cause I'm doing PRS tripods, but you don't need that to hunt. And like you get so caught up in it, and there's great marketing, and I get it, and you feel like, man, I can't kill this animal if I'm shooting 30-06 or 270. They've been doing it forever. Use what you got, but put a focus onto, I would say, use what you got and get a good backpack. I think Exo makes phenomenal backpacks. So I would definitely highly recommend looking at Exos because I have more experience with Exo than any other company that I'm going to talk to on this podcast because I've been using their stuff for so long. And I'm just a fan of them. I'm a believer in what they're doing. Mark, we like to end these podcasts with a hunting story. Doesn't have to be the biggest bull you ever killed. It could be a tragedy. It could be a fun story, or it could be the biggest bull you ever killed. Hit me with a good little hunting story, campfire story.
Yeah. I mean, my head just goes to what's recent and fresh. So this past fall, crazy fortunate to have several good hunts. One of which was a Dall sheep hunt, which I never thought I would say that I actually did that. That's a whole long story for a different day. That was a wild hunt. Was able to kill a ram on day 9 on a true backpack hunt, like non-motorized, hike in 15 miles deep in Alaska. But that's almost too big of a hunt to try and wrap up with. We
Yeah,
do have a full podcast on that if people want to hear it. Shortly after that, Steve who owns Exo, we were hunting together in Idaho for elk, and be it easier, shorter, hopefully still fun story. But we were going at we're I've had this tag a few years. We've hunted it together. We're familiar with this one area in particular, and we've had a blast like figuring out that area year over year, understanding how elk are moving through it, understanding how different conditions and levels of hunting pressure affect that area. And so it's just been a lot of fun to hunt it and to learn it. This year we were looking at it and it's like, okay, let's set that area, our core area as plan B, and like let's go into some new country. And if we go in here for a few days and we're not turning up any elk, we'll go back to the area we're familiar with. And so we head to this new spot and basically hiked in for opening morning and heard one bull kind of a little bit far off, didn't see him at first, kind of rounded a corner, and we're able to just catch a glimpse of him as he was kind of ducking into some trees, and also heard him again. So we got a quick look at him. He looked like a decent bull. We were able to hear him pipe off before that, hear him pipe off after that. And then we're just like assessing. He was cross canyon, like, okay, like he probably didn't go too far from the way he was acting. I think he had cows with him, based on the time of the year and the way he was acting. And So we're like, oh, at first it was a situation where it was like, all right, well, let's keep covering ground. Like, let's make a loop. Maybe we'll come back and hunt him that evening. Again, this is all new country to us, though. So as we started moving, we realized it was difficult terrain to move in. It was a clear day. It was pretty warm for that time. And just thinking about that bull, like I just couldn't let him go. And I was like, I really think like if we're just patient, maybe we can hear them midday. Maybe they're going to come down to water because the way this canyon laid out, it was pretty tight and there was water at the bottom, or so we thought. We'll get to that. And so we just made this decision like, let's stay in this vicinity. Let's see if we hear them pipe off again. Let's see if they come back out for water, or let's see if we just hear anything else in the area because it was a pretty heavily pressured area. I mean, there was 20 plus rigs at this trailhead that where we left from, but we kind of had this basin to ourselves. Like, let's stay in this. And so, long story short, is we ended up sitting on him, and he never did anything midday. I think we heard him once, but he never showed up. We didn't see any other activity, anything like that. And it's so anti my nature because I'm that guy who like wants to go see what's over the next ridge. And especially
Mhm.
when I'm new country, like I want to put boots on the ground, cover country, learn country, see what's around that bend. And for whatever reason, I was just like, no, I'm just like, let's sit on this bull. And we did that. And within an hour of dark, started seeing some cows feed out. And then eventually this bull fed out and was able to make a shot on him and put him down. And it was satisfying for me. It was the first time I've ever sat on an animal like that, just all day, like hoping maybe he's going to show up, maybe he's going to come back out, and he did, and it worked out. So it was a long day. It was tough for me to stay patient, like to stay mentally in it. But it was kind of cool because it was such a different experience for me in a different way than I've ever killed an elk or really any animal. Just sitting on them, like
Yeah.
almost dark to dark, like that was really cool. And as part of that, like we had, with all day to sit there, we had looked at, well, maybe if we approach from here, maybe if we do that,
Yeah.
and the way this canyon laid out, there was just no options. And then at one point in that afternoon, Steve went to go look for water. The bottom of this canyon was a creek, and he came back quite a while later. He's like, dude, it's totally dry down there. Like, we cannot find water. And it was probably early afternoon, and I had about a full Nalgene at that point. And so I started conserving water. We ended up sitting all day, shot the bowl, crossed the canyon, looked up and down for water again, climbed up to the bowl, still just had that Nalgene. And so all day was conserving water. Now killed this bull, now breaking down this bull. It's dark, it's late, still can't find water. Weighing through, like, how do we approach this? How do we approach the pack out? How do we find water? We ended up stashing some of the meat, started hiking. It's like way, way, way late into the night slash early morning at this point. We're hiking in the dark. Each had a full hind quarter on our back, and we essentially have had less than 30 ounces of water and what is now going on like 12, 13, 14 hours, and have a long pack out ahead of us either through the night or the next morning. And we were just sure that, man, if we just drop down to the bottom of the canyon, like we know we'll find water. If we just move up and down, like we'll find water. And we never did. And we were getting super tired. It's late. We're fumbling around in the dark. Going back to your point, like it's dangerous to be off trail in unfamiliar country, super heavy packs, tired at this point, dehydrated. We had bivvies, not even full tents. We threw out bivvies in the game trail and crashed overnight, and we never found any water. This is so rare for us, going back to talking about water, but super rare for our where we hunt in Idaho. We never found any water until, I don't even not even until when we got to the truck, but we packed the rear quarters in our camp all the way back out to the truck. Still couldn't find water near the trailhead, had to get in the truck and drive down the mountain to basically get water. So it ended up being this, almost 24-hour stretch of sitting on an elk, killing an elk, processing an elk, packing out the first load of camp in a rear quarter, and doing all that on like 30 ounces of water. It was cool. It was like one of those, now looking back at it, it was like concerning in the moment, kind of sucked. You're hiking around in the dark, tired, dehydrated, but now you just look at it and like, that was fun. That was a fun memory.
That's how elk are. Elk are type 2. Type 2
Yeah, it's
fun.
totally
They are.
type 2.
In the moment, you're
So
like, I hate elk.
yeah, and what was really funny too is when we, by the time we got done cutting up the elk, like it was well past dark. And when we hiked off where the elk was and dropped down to the bottom of the canyon trying to look for water, like it was a tough hike. But again, we're tired, dehydrated. It's way late. The next day when we came back in for the second load, it was like we couldn't have picked a worse route to go
Yep.
from where the elk was down to the bottom of the canyon. And everything was so much easier in the daylight. Refreshed mind, refreshed body, hydrated. So that second trip to get that elk out of there was definitely a lot easier than that first one. But yeah, that was just such a fun, hunt, a recent hunt, and one that sticks out for sure.
That's awesome. Yeah, a few good points from that. One, not only have you packed dangerous, getting tired is dangerous, right? Like you get
It
tired
is. It
and
really
you
is.
make like you just start making dumb decisions. Like I'm just going to cut down right here. Never, there's no such thing as a
Without
shortcut.
realizing it.
Without realizing,
Yeah.
yeah,
And
it's just
that's the thing, is you're making decisions thinking you're making good decisions, but you don't realize like how actually tired and impaired you are.
yeah,
It was exactly what happened. We were making terrible decisions.
yeah. And then the other takeaway is don't pigeon yourself into, well, I only glass for elk, or I only call
Yeah.
for elk, or I only when you have a like diverse like quiver, right? Like you
Mm-hmm.
will kill more animals, right? Like I
Mm-hmm.
just went to Mexico last weekend to hunt oryx, and I did two 14-hour sits. Did not see an oryx. It didn't work. But I absolutely hate sitting for animals. I go crazy. I did 35 hours in 3 days in a blind in like 90-degree weather, but it works. And I know it works.
Yeah.
Like killed a deer doing it last year. Like it's just like there's certain situations where your style, that what you consider your style, air quotes, of hunting is not going to be conducive to the situation. And if the end goal is killing an animal, be willing to, throw a curveball and, change up and get in there and sit on this out. And that worked out for you. If you would have said, no, I'm a ridge pounder. I do death hikes. We're Exo Mountain Gear. I train for this.
Right. Right.
You'd have been still hiking, right?
Yeah. I would have
So
walked away from an elk I could have killed.
you'd have
Yeah.
walked different elk you could have killed, right? So the end goal, like you have to be willing to pull an audible every once in a while, and you know, definitely you have your core, what you do, but there's like this is a good example of that, dude. What a fun podcast! I could say, I'm gonna let you plug yourself real quick, but I will say that Mark's podcast, the Backcountry Hunters podcast, Backcountry podcast,
Hunt Backcountry.
Hunt Backcountry podcast. I'm sorry, I've got
Yep.
the Hunt
No
Backcountry
problem.
podcast is probably the best backpack hunting podcast available. It is a fully unbiased podcast where you hear Mark and Steve and people in the industry who are hunters, backpack hunters, talk about gear from a fully unbiased opinion, other than backpacks. So they think their backpacks are the best, which they're
Yeah,
pretty
but we
cool.
don't talk about it much, to
You
be
don't talk about
fair.
it much, to be fair, but they talk about all kinds of gear, water systems, packing, boots. I don't know. I just listened to one with you guys the other day. They're just real. If you want to get into hunting, like this is one that I could put on, and I know I'm going to learn something from it. You're going to actually gain something from it. It's a phenomenal podcast. So, Mark, plug Exo, plug you guys, and let's wrap this thing up.
Yeah, I appreciate it. Everything's basically at Exo Mountain Gear. So if you're not interested in a pack, I would say still go there. That is where the podcast is at. In addition to the podcast, we just try and provide good information. So there's gear lists, there's nutrition plans, like for the backcountry. There's training plans. There's just a lot of
Mhm.
good free information there. So again, whether you are interested in a pack or not, that's still the place to go. You obviously can learn about the packs there. And then on the podcast, I would say one, yeah, if you're new to it, go check it out. We'd appreciate that. But I would also say go look at like if you pull up the podcast in Apple or Spotify or whatever, that's great. Do that, hit subscribe. But what's cool on the website for the podcast pages, since we've been doing it so long, there are so many great episodes. Like there's great episodes I've forgotten about that we've talked about. So there's a search feature there and like a category feature. So if you want to go and like look specifically on elk or specifically on rifle hunting, you can just go do that and it'll pull up, a bunch of episodes because we've been doing the podcast for almost 9 years at this point. There's
You
hundreds
have
of episodes.
500. How many episodes you got now?
So we have like what we call our Monday Minute, and then we have like we release our full length episodes on Wednesdays. With those combined, we got to be pushing like 700-800 probably.
Nice.
I mean, we started in 2015, and yeah, we've just been super consistent with one or most of the times two episodes a week since then, which is crazy. So yeah, there's hundreds of them, all kinds of stuff. Like you said, a bunch of gear, but a bunch of hunt stories from industry folks, but also just regular Joes, listeners of the
Yep.
podcast, all kinds of stuff. So yeah, check that out. And then I personally don't do really anything on social media or anything like that, but I'm easy to get a hold of. Just shoot us an email, give us a call. If you guys have any questions, whether it's on our stuff or something you see on a podcast or something like that.
Awesome. Thanks, Mark. Let's do it again, man.
Yeah, appreciate it, man. We'll talk soon.